Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Failure Effect. Today we are back with renowned scriptwriter, actor, filmmaker, comedian Mugambi Nthiga. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right. And this is part 2 of our interview that we started, in our previous episode. Now, today we come to you on a little bit of a somber note. We have just learned of the death of Charles Oda. And I believe, Mugambi, being that you have worked with him,
Yes,
you knew him.
I did.
Right. So you might have a couple of things to say about that because the next part of this interview impacts, a lot on where he was at the point in his life when he passed on. So we're going to take you back to where you were the last time we had this conversation.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is you were...
I'm trying to remember. I apologize. I believe.
No,
I believe I was I'd just come back from the country.
Exactly.
I'd come back into the country.
Yes.
And I was just trying to build everything up again.
Yes.
Yes. So I came back in 2009. I had all of these very big dreams. Anyone that's been in the diaspora for a while and has come back to Kenya will probably understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We come back with very big dreams, with what we have learnt from where we've come from. I'd only been gone for 2 years. I had a master's degree in advertising now, pretty reputable university. I'd had a year of acting experience on the theatre scene in Philly, been on a film. And I was coming back with the intention of balancing these two dreams.
Yeah.
The dream of acting and the dream of starting my own ad agency or getting back into an ad agency at a higher level.
Right.
And by the time we were getting to April of 2010, when I'd been around for 6 months, I was in a relationship. How that happened was, there's a particular friend of mine. I won't say her name, but we're still very, very, very good friends now.
Okay.
And the entire time I was in the US, I was really romanticizing. When I was missing home, you really romanticize home. You romanticize the sun, quiet afternoons, hanging out with your friends, the social scene, all of that. When I was out of the country, Blankets and Wine began. And I have to say, I was very excited to come back home. And I came back home at the right time, despite the things I'm going to describe. Because there was an explosion of creativity that came out. It used to happen like every 5 years. And 2006 was the beginning of something special. By the time we're getting into 2007, Just a Band was releasing their first album, Scratch Reveal. Blankets and Wine had begun as an event. Wanuri Kahio had released a film called Pumzi.
Yes.
And by, I think, 2009 also saw the release of Sugar.
Yes, the
Season
very
1.
first mini series.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, the 3-episode mini series.
With Lupita Nyong'o in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It had all of these big actors. Lupita, it had Valerie. It had Nick Mutuma. It had, I can't remember the poet's name, really popular poet, Antonio Sol.
Yeah.
All of these people. And it went in when it came to matters to do with HIV, not just in how explicit it was dealing with them.
Yeah.
Because HIV communication until then had not been cool.
True.
It was like, it's going to kill you. And if you remember what they were saying about HIV and AIDS in the 80s when it came out, it was like, you are going to die.
Yes.
But now it was dealing with young people who are living with it in a very cool campus, working in a radio station. Oh man, it was such a cool series. So all of this was really just like my call back home. So I came and landed and I'm like, now where do we begin? That where do we begin feeling is
Yeah.
It's a scary one.
It's not comfortable.
No, it's not. It's not at all.
Okay.
Then, the girl that I started dating, I pursued her when I got back because I'd been romanticizing a relationship with her. And by June of 2010, after I'd been back, we had been dating for a few months. And I realized a couple of things. One, this idea of the life that I'd wanted when I came back was not happening. I was back in full-time employment, meaning that I was once again going to get cut off from acting opportunities.
Right.
I hadn't really gone about starting the agency that I wanted, or at least making different moves as I had wanted to make. I ended up back where I was when I left,
Right.
back in full-time employment, except I was working as an account planner on a big account, Nestle, for Scan Group Africa. And as we had said in the last episode, when I left, it was the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
By the time I'd come back, Bharat had now really taken the steps in fulfilling his dream. And McCann Erickson, which now became McCann Kenya, I think had been taken over by Scan at about 3 or 4 years before then. And the reason he wanted that account, why he wanted McCann so badly, was because of the international affiliations
That it had. Because
Yeah.
McCann had been in existence like forever.
It had.
I remember hearing of it first in the early 1980s because my father ran a magazine and
Really?
he'd get a lot of advertising placed in the magazine.
Which
through
magazine?
McCann Erickson. It was called Woman's Mirror. So it was the the sort of like before Parents Magazine. It's what Parents Magazine
Was
modeled.
before then.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, so McCann Erickson.
Yes.
I mean, the affiliations, what kept it going strong, even back then, was the international affiliations. So if
Yeah.
McCann Worldwide had a big account like Barclays,
Yes.
then McCann in Kenya automatically
Yes.
had that
Inherited
account.
that account. Yes.
And Bharat wanted in on that action.
Yeah.
So I discovered when I was employed that I was on the Nestle account, which was huge.
Yeah.
It was Africa-wide. We were dealing with Nestle for Africa, and I mean sub-Saharan Africa, but Francophone, Anglophone, Lusophone, Africa. Huge accounts. We're dealing with pretty much every brand in the Nestle stable.
Yeah.
And I realized quickly I was book smart when it came to account planning. And account planning is strategy. Account planning is the steps that happen where you're strategizing and positioning a brand, and you're positioning the target audience, and
Right.
you're positioning where the brand fits within the target audience, and then find out what the best communication touch points would be,
Okay.
and what the best messaging would be for the best audience. I was book smart when it came to it. I enjoyed doing qualitative research when I was in grad school. It's something I was actually quite strong at, but I was not street smart at all. I was not street smart when it came to the day-to-day
Yeah.
of account planning, the extent to which you'd be dealing with clients. I was a creative before. You
Yeah.
hardly ever had to deal with clients before.
Yeah.
The number of PowerPoints you had to make, the amount of paperwork that you had to look through that wasn't very exciting at all.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you're not a creative anymore. So you're dealing with creatives, and creatives can be, you start realizing, wait,
Oh my goodness.
creatives
Where?
can be something else. But then you're also in between with client service and a creative director. And the fact that I'd come with an education meant that I was intimidating a few people, despite the fact that I was trying to give the sign that you really don't. I mean, I'm learning this along. So it just ended up being one of the most toxic, if not the most toxic work environment I worked in.
Oh my gosh.
At the same time, my relationship with this beautiful girl ended. She ended it.
Okay.
Why?
I mean, it begs the question.
Of course, it begs the question. She felt, she felt that I wasn't altogether there.
Okay.
And present, and
Okay.
I realized that this whole relationship thing, I was very new to it as well. So the pressure of the expectations versus the reality. The fact that there was a lot of things that I had hoped for that didn't work out.
Yeah.
And the fact that for all intents and purposes, everything that I'd kind of crafted was falling down around me.
Okay.
Now, at about the same time, Kenya's first global viral sensation, Makmende Amerudi Hahe,
Yes.
had come out. We shot it in April. It was one of the last things I did before I went and started my job. In fact, the job was already on the way by that point. I was just waiting for day one. And when I went to work, of course, there was this kind of, oh, you're the guy from Makmende.
Yeah.
And we had imagined, well, I'll speak for myself, but I'm not the only one. But I had imagined that this was going to lead to something. There was so much hype around that thing. There was not a single place where K1 went to that he was not known.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so just to put it in context, because
Yes.
remember this happened like maybe a decade and a half ago.
Yes.
And there are some
Oh my
people who
God.
don't know what Makmende refers
Oh my
to.
God, you're right. It's actually almost exactly a decade.
Yes. Oh, we're old,
Wow,
you guys.
wow,
We're
wow,
old.
wow.
So what
Oh,
is a
that's 14
Makmende?
Man. So Makmende, of course, was old school slang.
Yes.
For someone who was feeling tough, unajifanya Makmende, you know. It was our version of Rambo, Commando, whatever.
Yes.
And Just a Band. And if you don't know Just a Band, please go onto your music or your Spotify or your YouTube and look them up. Were making they were going into their second album called 82. And this was one of the songs that they were releasing, and I think they figured it was going to be one of the bigger songs.
Yeah.
Whereas they took on a very experimental, very pop but experimental pop sound. This one seemed to be the most out there yet settled in what people liked.
A little bit radio friendly for their
Yes.
genre. Yes.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. And it was produced by Mosioka and Jim, Bithi, Blinky, and Dan.
These are the members of Just a Band.
These are members of Just a Band.
Yeah.
Decided that they were going to do like a blaxploitation inspired video, and blaxploitation films from the 70s that were very often shot on a very small budget. They were made to be seen.
Yeah.
And they were made quickly on low budgets.
Yeah.
And had pretty much, the same storyline or the same tropes. Let me say the same tropes. There was always someone, whether it was a man or a woman, whether it was Richard Roundtree playing Shaft or Superfly.
Or Pam Grier.
Or Pam Grier playing Foxy Brown.
Yeah.
It was all about, kicking ass and taking names.
Yeah.
And it was almost always in the hood.
Yeah.
It was shot in New York City, all the big cities, and in the boroughs of New York, Harlem and them, where there was a huge black population. And there was almost always kung fu and gunfights and drugs and lots of nudity.
Yes.
That's blaxploitation.
That is. And for all of you guys who are looking for modern day reference, please go and find They Cloned Tyrone
Oh, yeah.
on Netflix,
Yeah.
because that's the best
That's-
example of
that's
current
a really
day
good one.
blaxploit. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah, the Clone Tyrone. Now, the Clone Tyrone, I believe, came out last year.
Yes.
In 2009, a trailer came out for a film called Black Dynamite.
Yes.
Yes.
I
Remember
love
Black
that
Dynamite?
movie. Yes.
It's a really good movie. And again, it's just celebrating.
Yes.
Dolomite is another one. Dolomite
Yes.
is another one on.
Yes.
Oh, and that one is perfect.
Yeah.
That one really speaks about
Yeah.
the genre so well.
Yeah.
So Black Dynamite, the trailer had come out, and these guys were so enamored by it. They were like, "What if we were to do a similar thing in Kenya? You have a badass who's coming back into town,
Yeah.
and he's angry with everyone because we don't have the backstory, but he's back and he's pissed." That was the line. Makmende is back and he's pissed. That kept being the thing. So they cast K1 because of his his Afro-ish thing going on. And they shot it, and phenomenal.
Okay.
It was
Yeah.
a phenomenon.
It was a worldwide phenomenon.
It
I
was.
remember seeing it in international magazines and thinking, what?
Yeah.
Kenyans can actually get here. It was a very fast viral phenomenon.
Yes, it was.
Right? So now you're here, right? You've got your ad agency dreams shelved. And then you've got this, your relationship is floundering at this
Yes.
point in time. And then you've got this viral phenomenon happening in your life. What was your state of mind at that time?
Yes. Now that's the question right there.
Yeah.
And you've kind of alluded to it. It was 2009. It was 2010.
Yeah.
And people didn't quite know how to deal with success on that level. What
Yeah.
do you do?
Yeah.
The word was always monetize, 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 monetize. You need to make money out of this. You need to make money. You can't be trademark the property. The first thing that happened when the video came out was there was a thing called Makmende facts.
Okay.
Much like the Chuck Norris facts. Chuck Norris doesn't do push-ups. He pushes the earth down.
Right. Okay. Okay. Got it.
Chuck Norris doesn't cheat death. Death apologizes to Chuck Norris for cheating him. Things like that. So there were a lot of such,
Yeah.
facts about Makmende. Our website was formed. People tried to form a Twitter handle and a Facebook page, but fortunately, Just a Ban had gotten ahead of them and done that. And then someone formed Makmende.com where they just listed the facts. So Just a Ban had to respond with Makmende.org.
Yeah.
And now we realize that all of us had been part of a very, very big piece of IP, but you don't know what to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I credit Just a Ban to this day for choosing at that time to remain creatively independent and not given to what every push and pull
Yeah.
was. But we, the cast, were not quite spared from the thoughts of everyone as to what should happen, and least of all, not K1.
True, because
Yeah.
he was
the face.
For those of you who don't know, K1 is the man who played the titular character,
Yes.
Makmende. His name is Kevin Minor.
Yes.
But everyone calls him K1.
K1, yes. So we were in this place where we don't know where it goes, and you don't know what the next steps for fame will be.
Yeah.
A radio station, I won't say which one,
Okay.
jumped on the hype, and they decided that they would use Makmende to relaunch their morning show that was going to have 2 new presenters.
Okay.
Now, in sometime when Kiss was still new and Kiss FM,
Yeah.
and they were, I don't know if you remember, Kiss FM had this tendency of really taking on ambitious creative projects.
Yes.
Whether it was very clever radio commercials that were very
Yeah.
titillating,
Yeah.
like the Clandé Club.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was literally a commercial club
Yes.
about the Clandé Club, which was supposed to be a club exclusively for people who are on an affair to go and be there, not be afraid.
Yeah.
And the tagline was, because we care about your affair. And like, Kiss was always doing these really big things.
Okay.
So when they were trying to relaunch Pilsner Ice, and they were launching a character called the Iceman, they staged this thing where Caroline Mutoko was kidnapped.
Yes, I remember that. And
You
then it
remember
caused
that?
this uproar.
It did.
Because people thought it was real,
Because
and they
people thought
didn't
it was real.
realize it was the very first episode of clout chasing this country had ever seen.
Absolutely. So it was cloud chasing for Carol, and it was cloud chasing for this Iceman, who was the person who was going to
Yes.
rescue her from these unnamed kidnappers. This other radio station decided to take the same approach.
Right. Okay.
And Makmende was the person who was going to rescue these 2 morning presenters.
Oh.
So yeah. So they staged a few things. One of them was no presenters on the morning of the launch,
Yeah.
or the morning of the first day, and it's because they were missing.
Yeah.
And they started a campaign, like a hashtag of. I'll just say the presenter's name. Hashtag Gaetano is missing.
All right. I remember that one too.
Yes, now you remember. He was supposed to have an interview on JK Live
Yes.
on the bench when they
But-
were still at Fairview, I think.
Yes.
And
He wasn't present.
and he wasn't present. And so Jeff Konanga is like, we don't have our guest today. And today we are benchless. And we're like, no, the bench is still there. It's the guest you don't have.
Okay.
Anyway, all of that hype as it was growing,
Yeah.
I remember we were getting more and more afraid
Yeah.
because we were seeing Twitter people saying, let this be a joke like they did with Carol some years back. Like,
Yeah.
oh, we're going to be so mad.
Yeah.
So just a band now under, Makmende, the profile on Facebook was like, whoever kidnapped Gaetano and Eve, I'm going to come and smash your face in.
Yeah.
And when people started catching on what was going on, they railed, or like Makmende, who had been a hero
Now
just days before,
yes.
now people went off in the comment section being like, I don't give a, come and kick my, come for me, whatever, it's me. And people are now really trolling. So we go from viral sensation to trolls just showing up.
Yeah.
And we had to continue the contracted work with said radio station where they created a story, and the two presenters showed up tied up, and I was one of the actors who my character was called Taste of Danger, and I'm the one that had kidnapped them.
Yeah.
And Makmende came and rescued them, and fought with my henchmen, of course, choppered all of them, and then showed up and set them free, and now they could be back on radio.
Yeah.
Yo, it didn't do that well.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And the plans to make it now like the plan at that point was to make it like a series of YouTube videos featuring all the characters that you saw in the video, many of whom were just hinted at, to make stories around them, and then to put these stories up and film them, and but very quickly the Just a Band people realized it was a lot of work for very little return. And already this whole thing had not worked out as well as expected. So very soon, the Makmende hype, as we knew it, kind of died off. And all of us were left like, we did get a paycheck from that job.
Yeah.
And it was a pretty okay paycheck for the time. But, now that was done.
Yeah.
And so my job is not working. But my relationship ended not too long afterwards. This chance at fame fell through, and I'm in the most toxic work environment, and I still don't feel fully settled or at home. From my stay in the US. So all of that combined into what I learned later was clinical depression.
Okay.
Now, I did not know what I was going through. I could not, there was no name for it, but I was finding it difficult to wake up in the morning. I was finding it difficult to get myself up and get in the shower and dress up. I was also dressing up in formal clothing to go for my advertising job, and I'm like, I hate this. I was living in Guma at that time. I was sitting in the car and just weeping in the car before going to work. And it's not just a sadness. People, and I'm glad that I'm speaking to an audience now that is really aware of mental health and mental illness. It's not just sadness. It's a feeling of despair, a feeling of despondency, a feeling of emptiness and numbness to the world. And you look in the mirror and don't know who this person is looking back at you. You wonder where that joy, that vitality that you had for life has gone. And you mourn it. And it was that I'm going into my office to meet with these toxic people and fights again and have my boss, who was an okay dude, but under agency pressure he could geuka and become something else. And it was gone. I felt like a part of me had gone and died and would never come back. I lived in this state for about 1.5 years. It was bad. It was terrible. I didn't want to wish it on anyone, but the worst part of it all, and the reason why I think people really need to have the conversations about not just mental health, because mental health is such a catchy buzzword now.
Yes.
No, conversations about mental illness.
Yes. Exactly.
Yes,
Yes.
not
Not mental health, because mental health is your state of being okay, you're all right.
Yes,
But there actually is mental illness, which
illness.
is
The
not,
things that
yeah.
are causing a problem to mental health. The things that are, and it's not being caught in jam or the state of the economy or what. It's what's going on in your brain.
Yes.
As a result of all of these pressures. That's the stuff that we need to be talking about. So, I mean, I still had a social life. I was earning okay money, and I'd go to a blankets and wine. And I remember being in the States and being, I really want to attend these blankets and wine. Blankets
Yeah.
and wine was growing. There's still a lot of creative projects going on, but I was just not there.
Yeah.
Now, I have to talk about one particular night when just a band continued on their upward trajectory. Their growth continued, and they had an album. Hahe was just one song in an album with various songs.
Yeah.
And they had various ways of releasing videos, shooting videos, and releasing videos for various songs. And they're all on YouTube. Beautiful songs. There's a beautiful video for Half and Puff, beautiful song for Ordinary. Yeah. Shake it like you mean it. That song. Shake it so delicious.
Listen, my brother is one of them, and it's a lot of music that they have in their catalog. So
Yes,
even
they
I
do.
can't.
What's that song called? Something People. Everyday People. Anyway, Everyday People is the other guys.
Yes, it's Everyday People.
Is it Everyday People?
Yes.
No, Everyday People is Everyday People.
No.
They're just a band song is called something else. Forever
Okay.
People. I think it's called Forever People.
Okay.
Yes.
Well,
They had all these videos coming
Yeah.
out, and to celebrate these videos, I was not involved in many of them now because
Yeah.
I was I had a full-time job now. The Hahe is the last one.
Yeah.
I had shot with them, and to celebrate it, there was a European media company that wanted to cover them. Yes, they were shooting for a video exhibition called Kudishnyao.
yes.
Kudishnyao, of course, is the
Yes.
Tanakali ya sauti for
Yes.
a gun going off. Kudishnyao, which we used to use as kids. Kudishnyao. And it was a video exhibition for which they were going to use very many of the songs that they'd released in 82. I ended up shooting one with them called Can I Be Forgiven? Can I Be Forgiven was an experiment. They had intended it for one of their newer songs. So around this time, just a band, in addition to 82, was also releasing a lot of other like experimental music. They had a song called Away. They were preparing for this video exhibition, and they had organized a shoot that was supposed to be the official music video for Away, where they had this really cool concept that people step into a taxi and they're sat at the back of the taxi for some reason. They are just bearing their most private
Yeah.
thoughts, the ones that you never let anyone see because they're so ugly.
Yes.
One person confesses to hitting his wife hard. Someone else confesses to stealing, to using their water company to just amass lots of money, even if water is a free resource. Someone else says, next election, I'm going to have a gun in my house. I'm not going to be caught
Whoa.
like I was last time.
Yeah.
A lady is referring to how her husband has become such a weakling, and that's why she cheats. Someone talks about hating white people. Someone talks about hating Somali people. It was just a bunch of videos.
Yeah.
If taken out of context, they could be really dangerous. But as part of the context of these are just people in a taxi and they're confessing. And I think there was 12 such videos. Each cast member had just been given a line.
Yeah.
They filmed it really smart with rare projection and which is basically they went out and shot the Nairobi streets, and then they put this on a computer and then projected the image of the back of the outside of Nairobi in blurry camera, and then had people sit in the car with a screen on which the projector image was falling. Rare projection. When you put the camera in front of the subject and they have the projection of the city behind them, they look like they're in a car moving.
Yes.
Even if they were in a stationary car the whole time.
Yes.
Then they had guys with torches, colored torches representing street lights, and they'd move the street lights back and forth in front of their faces.
Yeah.
That's how they shot Can I Be Forgiven? That's what the program was called.
Wow.
So at the end of that day, there was a European, I can't remember from what media house they were, that wanted to do a feature on Just a Band. And so when we left the shooting venue, we went back to Just a House. They're all living together
Yes,
at this
yes,
point,
they were.
somewhere in Lavington. And I remember that evening feeling, oh, it's coming. It always felt like a cloud coming over you. And where you were able to fake being happy during the day, by the time the evening was coming and your energy levels are going down, if you haven't eaten, the cloud comes. And I could feel that cloud coming.
This is what the beginning of a depressive episode feels like.
Yes,
Okay.
it does. It does.
Right.
You can feel it. It's like dark clouds forming.
Yeah.
Dark clouds forming, dark clouds forming,
Yeah.
dark clouds forming. It's here, it's your sight, it's your heart,
Yeah.
it's your body. And I could feel it coming. And I remember the rest of that night really just trying to fake happiness.
Okay.
Pictures were taken. We all looked really happy. What basically happened that night was an impromptu concert was put on. The media company was going to be filming Just a Band, putting on a concert for their friends in a house. And it was going to form part of the documentary feature that they were going to go and cut and present to their viewers in Europe somewhere. So they put on a concert, Jim sang, Blinky sang, the guys were there on their things. Mayonde sang. It was beautiful. It was wonderful. We wore party hats. There was finger food, like, popcorn and crisps and stuff. And
Yeah.
the cameras were on us at some time. And there was a feeling of euphoria at the end that kind of lifted my spirits. But I was so sad. And I remember thinking to myself, is there anyone in this room who feels the way that I do? Is there anyone who will understand if I tell them that I'm so disconnected from all the joy I've known in my life?
Yeah.
And this is all just a show. Very many years later, when I was looking at the pictures, I realized that in that place, in that space with me, was a dear friend of mine called Wahora.
Right.
Wahora Kanyoro.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Yes.
Wahora had lived with depression since she was, I believe, 12, 13, 14, since primary school.
Yes. And
Yes.
again, for context, Dr. Wahora Kanyoro, she was a doctor who was very interested in the arts and the creative scene and spent a lot of time hanging out with her peers, right, in the creative industry. Did she ever act or sing, or she was just like very
She never let
closely-
on.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. But
She
was
never
always-
let on.
Yeah.
But
She was always like very joyful and warm and positive
and positive and bubbly.
Yes,
And she was
exactly.
a singer. She sang, she acted, she danced. I directed her on a bunch of plays that we did for Mavuno,
Yeah.
which were happening at around the same time that I was flailing. And she was in the room that day. She was part of the people there. I had no idea what she was going through. She
Yeah.
had no idea what I was going through.
Yeah.
And we were friends.
Yeah.
Mental health issues were still, mental health was not really a buzzword at that point. Again, this is 2010. And you didn't really, you wouldn't share what was going on if you were depressed.
Yeah.
Because what does that mean? It hadn't really come into the public conversation. The only reason I knew I was depressed was because I did a poll on our website. I typed in, am I depressed? These are the signs to check for if you're depressed. This. If you ticked more than 6 out of the 10, I think I ticked 7 or 8, then you're definitely clinically depressed.
Right.
But now that you have that information, what do you do?
What do you do with
Yeah,
it? Where
I
do you
don't
go?
know. Where do you go?
Yeah.
Do I go and see and we used to call them a shrink.
Yeah.
And a shrink is literally short for head shrinker.
Yeah.
Which is what they used to call
Psychiatrists
back
yeah.
then. Do I go and see a head shrinker? Am I going to need to start taking meds? Is this the end of my life as I know it? All of these questions just going in your head. And then you don't want to let on in front of your friends
Yeah.
why you're sad. Why are you sad? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel that way. I had no idea that Wahora was going through the same thing.
Okay.
At the exact same time.
Yeah.
We are on those pictures smiling and looking happy, but this thing that was affecting people, there was so, not just me and her, but hundreds of other young people of our demographic
Yeah.
who were going through the exact same thing. Yet, I felt so alone. It affected my work, of course. But the other thing with depression is you become overly desensitized to things, but then also hypersensitive to other things.
Yeah.
When you start to feel like you're in danger, and that's another thing about depression, you feel like you're in danger and you don't know where the danger is lurking. You become hypersensitive to the things your workmates say. And not just the things they say about you, but the things they say about the world.
Yeah.
Because they seem to be surviving so well in it. So you start to really hang on to things that might be very misleading or very toxic. You don't ever feel like you're at home in your own skin, much less in a friend group. And if you don't feel at home, even in your own home, now what hope is there? You don't feel at home in the office. You don't feel at home in your home. You don't feel at home in the shower. You don't feel at home in bed. You don't feel at home on your desk at work, your desk at home. You don't feel at home in front of your couch in the TV. Food doesn't taste good. Drink doesn't do anything.
Can't
except what it
sleep.
does.
Yeah.
You're either sleeping too little or too much.
Yes.
You have to work 10 times as hard to groom yourself.
Yeah.
Going to the barber means being around people.
Yeah.
And Mugambi, Mambo VP, and you're like,
I can't
do this.
Yeah.
I'd wear hats all the time because my hair would just grow
Okay.
out. And then you feel like a letdown
Yeah.
to yourself. I never told my parents. I only told my parents that I was going through a depressive episode years after it was way behind us. Oh, I was depressed back then. No, you are. Yeah.
And then...
Yes, past tense.
Yeah, and I suppose when people, especially from a certain age group and at a certain point in time, when you say, imagine I was depressed, what they hear is, Aki, I was feeling very sad.
Bus.
They don't hear, I actually could not function.
Bus.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the feeling.
Yeah.
And I felt like admitting it to my parents, admitting it to my siblings, admitting it to my friends was admitting weakness, because you should have been stronger.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have let the sadness win. You ought to be happy.
Yeah.
I really became curious about depression at that point. And not from the point of view of what it is, but why it's such a difficult thing to talk about.
Yeah.
And I had myself as a test subject. I knew to talk about not being able to talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That, I think, started my trajectory in being very passionate about stories to do with mental health and mental illness.
Okay.
A passion that continues to today. Simply because back then, for the year and a half, and with a relationship long ended, I kind of fell in love with this other person who created such a beautiful space for me to exist and be like, oh, depression, yeah, I've been there before. And she described her symptoms, and I'm like, oh my God, I've never felt so seen. I'm in love. It didn't last very long either.
Okay.
But this was for different reasons. And with her, we're good friends as well. So, I mean, I was in a terrible place. Admitting that weakness to people and not being able to communicate about it. The silence around mental illness is just as harmful to the person going through the illness as the illness itself. I believe that just the silence, the stigma around it will do a lot of harm to them. A lot of people didn't know that Wahora was depressed until what happened
when she passed on. Yes.
I really was not seeing an end to it. Then a couple of things happened, magical things.
Okay.
Oh man, yeah. One of them was I left Makan.
Okay.
I am grateful to this day to my boss for moving me upstairs from Macan to Scanad. I was taken off the Nestle account completely. And I was put on some other more fun accounts. And in addition to the strategy behind the creative, I could also work on the creative. So I started shifting towards creative slowly by slowly. And the creative was pretty decent. And then in between that, a film was shooting. Now, I went and auditioned for this film, didn't get the role. And then the person who got the role dropped out. And that's how I ended up getting a role on Nairobi Half-Life.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Which is, I think, it is literally my favorite Kenyan movie and continues to be. I cannot think of anything else. And there have been a lot of decent productions that have come up since, but Nairobi Half-Life is big.
It's still something special.
Yes.
A lot of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people hold the same view as you. They love that film so much. It's rare. It's becoming more common now, with Gen Z and with a bit of distance from time with the film. For me to meet people who have not seen it, but 9 out of 10 people will have seen the film.
Yeah.
And each of them can speak about how for them it was like, oh my God.
Yes.
It premiered in 2012, but we shot in 2010.
Okay.
When I got the role, I went into an office, an empty office, like was still waiting to be occupied, and danced.
Oh, wow.
It's the first time I moved. Even my body was like, what's going on? We haven't moved. We haven't felt like this in a long time.
Yeah.
I was so overjoyed. My first day of filming was going to be the day, I think, after I had. And I was going to be picked up from work and taken on to set. A lot of my scenes happen at night. So it made sense that I was be shooting after hours.
Right.
And I remember being in the van and being overcome by a very familiar feeling. The feeling of being out of place, but a very different type of out of place. Again, depression puts like a thick wall, like a thick void around you, and you feel so separated from people. You can be sat next to someone and feel miles away.
Yeah.
I felt that way in the van. However, the reason I was feeling this way was because these guys had been shooting for about a week and a half, probably 2 weeks, and they were buzzing. There was so much good energy on that set. People were so excited about this thing that they were creating. And of course, I was shooting the role of a dude who may or may not be gay.
Yes.
And who happens to experience a liking for the protagonist, the main character, Moas. And so I was cast late. Someone else had been cast. They knew someone else was going to be playing that role. So I get into the van and people are like, sorry, what role are you playing?
Yeah.
And I say, I'm playing the role of Cedric. And they're like,
But
did you know that the role of Cedric was changed? They weren't informed.
Yeah.
So already I'm feeling so out of place.
Right.
And then I'm already feeling like these people are talking about the day before. And I remember on the way to set thinking, if these guys are shooting on film, I'm done. Because if they're shooting on film and I start forgetting lines and I start the performance is not good. I was so scared. I was like, we're wasting reels of film.
Yes.
So one of the first questions I asked was, so this film, is it being shot on film? And they say, no, we haven't seen any of those stacks or reels or rims. No, this is being shot on digital. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Then I was next to the props person and they said, do you want to see films? Do you want to see photos of behind the scenes? And I was like, yeah, please show me. And as I was looking at these pictures and they were like, yesterday we were filming in a toilet. It felt real. Now you remember the scene I'm talking about. Yeah.
Okay, listen, I watched it the other day. I was eating mokimo. Please do not remind me.
So the toilet scene. Yes. They had shot that the day before, 2 days before. So they were buzzing. And I remember feeling to myself, maybe I can allow myself something of that joy that these people are feeling. And maybe it'll work out. I was very afraid. My goodness, I was afraid. We were going to Black Diamond.
Right.
We were going to shoot the scene where I come into the club with Mas for the first time, and we have a
Where
conversation.
you've invited him out for a drink
Yes,
in
I've invited him
Westie.
out for a
Yes.
drink in Westie. Hey.
Yeah.
Hey, yes, exactly. Are you a guy of pints? You go catch one in
Yeah,
Westie.
yeah.
We'd film that Are you a guy of pints line, which people still quote to me today. It's so amazing. And that we filmed many days later. But my first scene to film was where we're walking into the club.
Oh, wow.
Then the next scene was where we sit down and we have drinks and we have a conversation.
And then you start dancing.
And then the next scene was dancing. And then we finish with a montage scene where we're sat outside and time is passing and I'm smoking a cigarette as Mas is telling us a story.
Okay, wait. So you shoot these 3 pivotal scenes before you have your first,
Appearance.
meetup,
Yeah.
where you're sitting on the steps of the Kenyan
Oh,
National
that was
Theatre.
days later.
Okay, so the chemistry that we see in the club
Yes.
had to be generated on the spot, literally.
Fortunately, because we
wow.
had auditioned together.
Yeah.
And then I met him on. Actually, this is a bit of trivia. You'll notice that on that day, my clothes are a little bit oversized.
Okay.
I might look like I'm baggy and dressed in baggy clothing.
Yeah.
But it's because even the wardrobe department was not informed.
Yeah.
There was no time to inform the dozens and dozens of people in every department that the
Yeah.
actor has been changed. So I was wearing the previous actor's wardrobe.
Okay.
And then I meet Joseph Babu Erimo. Every time I'm walking on set, the ADs are supposed to assist you and tell you where you're supposed to go, but a lot of the ADs don't even know. So for a bit of time, I'm walking around Black D. The sun is still up. We're going to start filming when the sun went down.
Oh, wow.
Wondering where to go. So every department, so first you need to go to wardrobe. I go to wardrobe. Gina, Mugambi, Roliako, Cedric. Then you see the guy with Cedric's. When do you Cedric? Then you see them checking their notes. So every single person, when do you Cedric? And every reaction was either, when do you Cedric, Ama, when do you Cedric? Because they know the scene that's coming up.
Oh, the
a
one
few
where you
days
guys
later,
were locked up
we were in a
this
box.
Yes.
I felt so out of place. My goodness. But Babu, God bless him, has such a nice energy. So accommodating, so welcoming.
Yeah.
So we started talking, and in between takes and in between things, we're just talking. This was the first time I think I was formally meeting Tosh. He would not remember that I'd worked with him on a TV series way before, where he was a first AD, but now he's the director.
Yeah.
And this is the first time formally meeting Tom, who was the executive producer, supervising director. It's the first time I was meeting a lot of these people, and I was nervous. Nervous, man. But as we started, soon we're finding our stride.
Then, yeah.
And one scene down, another scene down, another scene down. No, one shot down, another shot down, another shot down. And then that is a full scene. That scene is done, and then we go into the next one.
Yeah.
Something beautiful was happening in my heart. I was like, I'm shooting a movie. I'm living the dream. I'm that little boy.
Yes, the one who went to what, was constantly watching TV all of the time and absorbing, the behind the scenes information, and then watching all of these musicals.
Yes.
And then now here you are.
And now here I am.
Yes.
And I remember being that little boy again, watching Showbiz Today.
Yeah.
And all the lights and all the boom mics and the director and they with their headphones watching a monitor. That was me, except I was in front of the camera.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. That day came to an end. I went to sleep and I must have gotten some of the best sleep I'd gotten in a long time.
Okay.
And I filmed every scene. The scene in the theater. There's a deleted scene where we're driving in the car, where we're driving to the club. That was a very... we filmed that on another separate day.
Yeah.
There was the scenes in the theater, the scene in the box, which was filmed in a backyard of the production house.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't inside. It wasn't there was two boxes. There was the box that we jump into.
And then there's the box that you shoot in, because quite obviously you can't fit, cameras and two human beings in there.
Yes. So we had the open front.
Yeah.
All of these ended up culminating with me begging to be on set for the days that I did not need to be on set
Why?
because I wanted to take it all in. It was the dream, and I just wanted to be there to just. I still was I was still such a novice. I was still an actor.
Yeah.
This was only my second screen role, and the first one was for a TV series. I wanted to see what it's like on a film set
Okay.
where everyone knows what they're doing.
Okay.
It was hypnotic.
Okay.
Hypnotizing. It was magic. And I just wanted to be there in the magic.
Well, you're gonna okay. So just to understand, because remember you've left your job at McCann, right?
Yes. I'm at Scanad now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So you're still getting paid.
Yes, I'm still
Okay.
working full time, which
Okay.
is why I was doing night shoots.
Okay.
And then for the 2 days while we were shooting at Phoenix, I asked for days off on that day. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So it's just 2 days of shoot.
And then the night shoots.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Nairobi Half-Life was also paying?
Yes, but not much.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
So
not
it
much.
was mostly a
'cause it was
passion role.
Yeah, it was an
Okay.
educational project for everyone. So all of it was on it as a passion project.
Okay.
But that was one of the turns.
Yeah.
The second turning point, of course, the third turning point, aside from being moved out of the toxic work environment. And I mean, even Scanad felt different. There was more air, there was more
Yeah.
light.
Yeah.
We were high up. Makan was it on the first floor? It felt like a basement. It felt
Of
like
the
we're in
Chancery.
a basement of the Chancery. Yeah. I think it was the first floor. It felt like a basement, man. It felt like you got into the lift and went down. But I think it was on the first floor.
Wallahi. Okay.
But here there was more light.
Yeah.
There was more joy.
Yeah.
It felt nice.
Yeah.
And people were friendly.
Yeah.
And the work was fun. And I didn't have to dress in my formal clothes anymore. I sort of
Okay.
transitioned my wardrobe back to the more casual clothing. And then I'm shooting a film. And then the disappointment of Makmende was fully behind me by this point. And then I was in this relationship which seemed to be okay, but the girl I was dating seemed to have an issue with the fact, and she realized, oh man, okay, it's one thing to be depressed yourself. It's one thing to know what it's like as depression for someone else. Something totally different to be dating a depressed person.
Yes. Yes.
And
indeed.
she kind of set herself free from that, which I did not see coming.
Oh.
It jarred me so violently. Like when she said, I want to break up, I was like, what?
How long had you guys been dating?
Part of it was long distance when she was out of the country.
Yeah.
I would say about 13, 14 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Enough to make a significant.
Oh, yeah, yeah. There
Connection,
definitely
yeah.
was. Oh, there definitely was a connection. So
Yeah.
when she wanted out, by this point, I had been at Scanad for a few months and had moved over to Ogilvy, Africa to start working on the Airtel account. And I was doing pretty well there. Now I was a fully fledged creative. And life was starting to look up, even if I was still dealing with it. And she was like, this depression, and remember, we've shot Nairobi Half-Life by this point, but
Yeah.
depression is something that even the depressed person almost has to wake up and feel differently to feel,
Yeah.
I guess I'm out of the worst of it now.
Yeah.
But that breakup was so jarring. It was like I don't know. I feel it was almost like something the brain just clicked back into place.
Yeah.
And I started feeling like myself again.
Okay.
I was 32 by this point. I had been living with depression for close to 2 years.
Okay.
By this point. Now, this would look like it was a failure.
Yeah.
And it was to a large extent because that huge disconnect with myself felt like some lost years. But it wasn't entirely that. There's still some things that happened in the midst of it. And I know people who are living with the worst cases of depressive episodes or periods of anxiety who are still living. It's just that the world is not designed for people with mental illnesses.
This is true.
It's designed for people who are productive.
Yeah.
And I'm sad to say, just productive. You have to be productive is the first thing.
Yeah.
Your good family life, your good recreational life, your good spiritual life, your good, all of these still come to the nucleus of, are you productive first to allow you the freedoms to be all of these other
To
things?
be all of you. And I think that's also the reason why people don't understand how, for example, death by suicide would happen at the tail end of, a depressive episode. I keep saying, if you have malaria, if you have pneumonia, if you have, the flu, if you do not get it treated, it will kill you.
Yes.
In the same way, whatever mental illness you're suffering,
Yes.
will kill you if you do not get it treated or at least be aware of its existence.
Yes.
So, I wish there was something that people understood and then would give people suffering, mental illness a little bit of grace.
I wish it's the last thing that you said.
Yeah.
It ends up being that this person is in the afterlife. They're not here anymore, but
Yeah.
you'll still victim blame them. And you'll still put it on them.
Yeah.
Why didn't they say something? But they looked, but they acted,
Yeah.
but they, and using your same using that same metaphor that you used just now, where you have malaria, you have pneumonia, you have whatever. Mental illness feels like you had an arm yesterday,
Right.
and you lost it and it grew back, and you wake up and it's missing again, and it's a severed limb and it's bleeding all over the place, and you don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And you don't know what to do. You might bleed out right there.
Yeah.
Except the severed part of you is up here. It's your
Right.
It's a part of the very vast network of neurons in your head, and you don't know which one is going to fail to fire that day. It's hell, man.
Yeah.
I cannot describe, and I don't even think I experienced the worst of it. Let me not make it like, I at one point, the worst of it was me taking a retreat and taking a few days off at a Catholic retreat center in
Yeah.
Karen, and asking for days off from my boss. By this point, I had lost weight. My skin was shades darker. I walked with a stoop. My eyes were half masked all the time. And I was always keeping from bursting into tears.
Right.
And even the bursting into tears was a good thing, because I had not really gone into the bit where I was so numb that even the feelings and emotions were not there anymore. That bit of you, and I had a therapist tell me this, have you been crying? And I say, yes, this was recently due to something else. And they said, that's good. If you're still in touch with that part of yourself that is weeping, and then that's a good thing. And I was still very much in part of that bit of me that was asking myself why. So the worst of it was crying for, I think, 2 days straight. So much that I was chugging water.
Okay.
Chugging water because I was losing so much of it.
All right. To rehydrate.
Yes, to rehydrate.
Okay.
Literally sitting and just crying for hours.
Yeah.
For hours. And by the time I was driving home, I was like, what happened back there? I don't know. But yeah, to Melia.
So I want to redirect the conversation a little bit because, first of all, for those of you who want to catch up with Nairobi Half-Life, you can find it on Netflix. But I want to talk about your very first effort directing,
Okay.
which is Lusala,
Yes.
which you can also find on Netflix.
Yes.
And this is the thing about Lusala, is that it is about a topic that is very, very close to your heart, which is mental illness, right? So, like, how do that bridge between where you were after Nairobi Half-Life and how you got to Lusala, what did that journey look like?
I went from being an actor on Nairobi Half-Life
Yes.
to being a co-writer on another film called Katikati,
Yes.
which I co-wrote with Mbithi and was directed by him, also available on Netflix. And then went on to be head writer on a film called Supermodo,
Yes.
which was directed by Likarion Wenaina, based on an original story idea from him. In between...
And Supermodo is really quite big. This is an award-winning movie.
Oh, Supermodo is the most awarded film in Kenya.
Yes.
I'm not joking. Like,
Yes.
Google it. I can say confidently because we lost count as to the number of awards it won.
Yes.
And when we lost count, personally, when I lost count, it was like at 40-something.
Wow.
When Likarion lost count, it had reached the 70s.
Uh-huh.
Individual awards given to this film
This is
from around the world.
excellent.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I had also joined up with two friends, and we started writing musicals called the Village series, Village
Yes.
Easter, Village Christmas. These were comedic musical plays where we'd take a story from the Bible and apply a Kenyan context, twist it around this way and that, and make it fun. Or make it very cerebral. By
Yeah.
the time we wound up that, we were really talented writers. And I ended up being one of the co-writers of a series on Zuku called Groove Theory, which was about students in a fictional university trying to start a band.
Right.
Season 1, the 4 titular characters were played by K1, Kevin Maina, who I got to work with again, Elsafa Njora, Pascal Tokodi, and Kevin Samuel. Kevin Samuel couldn't return for season 2, so he was replaced by Charles Ouda.
Okay. So Kevin Samuel is Janet
Bogwa's
Bogwa's twin brother.
Yes, not the twin.
Okay, but brother.
Yeah, but brother.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think younger brother.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And it was such an honor to work with him. I loved working
Yeah.
with him, but he couldn't make it for season 2. I think
Yeah.
he left the country. So Charles came and took his place. And the people that were in this series had to be able to sing, dance, and act because it was a musical TV series. We were really experimenting with good stuff there.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, you can see the rough edges on it now,
Yeah.
just like you could then. But we were really, I mean, every episode had 3 songs. One was a cover, 2 were original songs, at least 3 songs, and we loved. We were singing, we were writing songs, we were writing prose, we were writing dialogue. It was beautiful. We received
Excellent.
training for it. It was great.
Yeah.
Actually, Yafesi Mosoke, Tina Nduba, Tina Nduba Banja were the 3 writers on it, and it really got us started on our writing careers. And that's to some degree how I ended up on Katikati
Okay.
and then Supermodo.
Okay.
So Lusala comes around on, just like Supermodo, we started writing as literally as Katikati was enjoying its phenomenal success.
Yeah.
We were starting pre-production on Lusala just as Supermodo was enjoying an even more phenomenal
Right.
success.
Uh-huh.
Now, a little bit of backstory behind that. Yes, it's a story about mental health and mental illness. We didn't quite know that going in.
Aha. What was it supposed to be?
It was supposed to be a story about family and the tensions of a family where a member of the family who wasn't an original member of the family starts presenting a little bit of...
Odd behavior?
No, it wasn't even odd behavior. It was just a tension
Okay.
of... the question around it was, imagine where you are, that you have a small daughter. Let's imagine she's 4 years old, and you bring in a 7-year-old cousin, and they grow up together. And your daughter is now becoming a woman, and you look at the cousin, and he has been a man for a long time, and you start to wonder,
What if the two of them...
yeah, like what?
Yes. And in this
And
case...
we wouldn't even put it that way. We'd be like, what potential dangers might be there?
Yeah.
Particularly because this guy is not of our flesh and blood.
Yes.
And we know that he comes from really difficult background. Yes, we took him in and kept him here for 11 years. But now it's time for him to go. That was still the gem of the idea from the very beginning. How it unraveled played out a bit differently.
Yeah.
I was not the writer on this. The writing team had already been together for a bit, but through no fault of their own, the story was not coming together as organically as Katikati had to me and Bithi, and as Supermodo had to me, Likarion, Silas Miami, Wanjeriga Kuru, and Kamo Wandongo, who were the 4 writers and the director with the original story idea on Supermodo. It was just very, very difficult to land the plane. And that happens.
Yeah.
I have to say and anyone who's involved in media or the arts knows that there's that piece of work that does not always land the way you want it to. And there's a few choices to make when that happens. One, go with it, which is what we decided to do with Lusala. We just decided to continue moving. Or two, postpone the whole thing. There was no time
Okay.
to postpone Lusala. Lusala we knew was going to be the last film of the One Fine Day series because
Okay.
they were going to transition into other things.
Okay.
So there were not a lot of money had been spent, a lot of schedules had been freed up, particularly from the crew who have a tendency of being very busy and the mentors who were coming in from
Right.
different countries. Most of them were coming from Germany, who were very busy. The cinematography mentor, for instance, was the same person that was the cinematographer on Nairobi Half-Life.
Okay.
And he wasn't on the same level as he'd been when we were doing Nairobi Half-Life.
Yeah.
He had grown.
Yeah.
He was very much in demand.
Yeah.
So we could not possibly,
You couldn't.
as much as the story hadn't quite landed and had been sealed and this is what we wanted to do,
You couldn't postpone.
we could not postpone.
Yeah.
So the implication of that was a few things. One of them was that we were literally writing the film as we continued shooting.
Wow.
On some days, I was the one leaving set last
Why?
because I had to sit and start writing the series for the scenes for 2 days after. A
Okay.
scene for the day after, I would have to. Let me summarize the story.
Okay.
The story wasn't coming together as well as it should have. So in an emergency meeting, we chatted, and this is a bunch. When I say we, I'm referring to a bunch of people coming
Yeah.
in and out of the process. Some contributing, some not. It was very complicated. But we had to break down the story from beginning to end by scenes. And by the time we started filming, some scenes that were in what was supposed to be the shooting script were removed, others were added.
Yeah.
And that meant that we had to be writing as we were shooting. Bithi was brought back as a sort of like supervisory role so that he could assist with the writing because we now were going from day to day. It was now day to day. The actors were brought into an acting and improv workshop with a really phenomenal acting coach from Germany called Bridget. Now you know the cast of Lusala, of course, Brian Ogola.
Yeah.
Sibur, that's what I call him now, who played Onesimus, the uncle figure. Mkamze Motelo, who played the aunt figure. Alice Wangari, who played Joma. And then a bunch of other supporting characters. I'm sorry, I'm blanking out on some of the characters. I can't match the name with the name.
Sorry.
But,
I'm sure they know you have them in your heart. So.
Yes, I really do. And a bit of backstory. I haven't had much sleep because I had phenomenal stomach upset last night. So I still have a bit of brain fog.
Okay, Paul, Sana.
It's cool. If I haven't run off,
Okay.
then I'm better now. You know you're better from a stomach upset.
Yes. If you
chance gas and it's just gas.
Okay, we did need to know this, but okay.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
That was before I left the house. I was like, let's chance this. Okay, that's all there is. Okay, it's cool. I can get into the cab to come here, but I was afraid, man. Anyway, so all of these actors were really, really good. They had been cast early, and we were casting them as we went along.
Yeah.
But we were all involved. Eddie Kimani was there. Nice Kithinchi was there as well. And we became something of a family in all of the bonding and the improv and the acting exercises that we went in to do. But now the exercises now had to be focused towards story. So we cast. The workshop was also like a casting workshop. And so we cast everyone and then threw them into improv exercises where they would try different scenarios.
Yeah.
And we'd watch the videos
Yeah.
and use those as the basis of, okay, this is the chemistry we're seeing between them. How can we rewrite this
And
scene?
then, yes.
It was a lot of work. Please remember I'm the director of the film as well.
This is the thing, because this is your first effort.
This is my first feature film.
Right? And it sounds to me like you don't even have that much experience in front of the camera to begin with. And I don't know how much experience you have script writing, you know? I mean, you've done your movies with just a band, yeah, but those are short music videos. But it's not the same. Like, how
Lusala
does that...
happened in 2018.
Yes.
So by this point, I had done Supermodo, we done Katikati.
Yes.
So the writing
Okay.
experience was there.
Right.
I'd had the experience of doing a lot of directing for theater. I had also been part of Because You Said So, our improv comedy group. And Jason Runa would be a wonderful person to have on this show because
Yeah.
BYSS was born out of failure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was born out of a very important part of his life failing and hitting the ground. That's where Because You Said So came
Yeah.
out from. And so there was improv chops, and I knew how improv works, and I knew how to kind of get what I need to get out of watching people improvise. But I had, until that point, only directed an experimental documentary, and I was coming off of 5 months of film school. Very quick touch and go, touch on this, touch on this, touch on that, because there was so much to do in a very prestigious German film academy.
Right.
I literally came and joined the Lusala team, like probably 4 days after I landed. That's when the writing was happening, and it didn't. We had the story that we wanted to tell, but it wasn't quite there. So that's why we had to now do all of this work behind the scenes. So I am directing, but I'm also the scenes that I had to handle on set and rewrite as we're filming, and then of course having to answer dozens of questions every single day. Now, this is the failure project. I'll be very honest and say that it's taken a while for me to see Lusala as a success.
Which I will tell you this. I mean, watching it, it is such a genius work of art. It's
Thank you.
Very, very beautifully put together. I mean, you can see a little bit of, you know, there's this bridge on Ngong Road, yeah, that doesn't actually, it's not actually a bridge. It's just, it starts on one side of the road and then it ends. And then you can see where it was supposed to connect on the other side of the road, but there's nothing in between to make it a bridge. So you can literally just do like, it's like jumping off of what you call that board into a pool.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah.
it feels like. And you can see, sorry, excuse me, maybe a couple of those in Lusala, but for the most part, it is such a believable, very, very well put together story. I'm just sad that it only lasted an hour.
And there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that. By virtue of the fact that you were writing this film as we were going along, we were doing the final rewrite as we were shooting. The final rewrite on paper, and then the rewrite, that the inevitable rewrite that you have to do on set. It's said that a film is written 3 times. It's written on paper, then it's written on the shoot, because you'll never ever find the perfect locations. An actor will bring something different, a location will bring something different, shooting times will go this way or that, budget might be found or lost. And then the last one is in the edit and in post. That's the last rewrite. So we're doing 2 rewrites at the same time. We're doing the final rewrite of the script as it exists, and then we're doing the rewriting on the screen. That is very difficult to do.
Yeah.
I could not help feeling on set like, oh man, we had Mbithi had a complete script to work with on Katikati. Likarion had a complete script to work with on Supermodo. Now this project that had been untitled for a long time until we decided to call the film Lusala. And credits to Silas, who said this is a terrible idea. When I said we should call the film
That's,
Kikulacho.
but why?
Because we had seen one of the previous iterations of Lusala was that he comes into the family and acts something like a parasite.
Okay.
Very much like the film Parasite.
Okay.
Yeah. But that ended up not happening. Kikulacho kingoni mwako is the thing that's eating you. It's inside your clothes.
Yeah.
It's inside your home.
Yes.
But that ended up not being the thing. I had also seen that as Kikulacho is in your head. Like the thing that's eating you is in your head. So I don't think it was a bad name, but Lusala is much better. The fact that we were writing the film as we were shooting it meant that in edit, immediately when they started working on the first rough cut, there were already scenes that weren't working for the full story. We never really had the chance to have the story from beginning to end and see it from 10,000 miles away so that we can now come and see how we can deal with it. On a smaller level, I had to be like this and like this and like this and like this every single day. While you were that film cleaned me out. My energy reserves were so... By the time we were going into shooting, I was already, stretched. But now shooting itself, wherever you place the camera, whatever thing you tell the actors to do, that's it. You can't change it. You can't change it on the day of shooting. That's it. That's just how it is. Remember, I'm writing as we're shooting. And we're still figuring out the totality, the big picture view of the story. And then I'm also having to deal with a lot of imposter syndrome. And my friend, imposter syndrome is showing up in real life.
Yes.
Oh, you shouldn't be doing this. You don't have a full script. Or you shouldn't be doing this, You haven't written the scenes for tomorrow. How on earth do you go about writing a film as you're shooting it? Doing the final rewrite of a film as you're shooting it? Man, it was hard. Second last day of shooting, I had a crew member who... I'll say this now. I think we can still be friends if she hears this, but she should not have been on that film, and should not have been given. She could have been on the film. She should not have been in the position that she was. Because she was close, very close to me, and turns out was a little bit manipulative. Was causing little cliques and clubs within the thing, and I heard that she was on another set and doing the same thing, and she was not very polite, not very kind, and not respectful of how a film should work.
Was she part of the cast or the crew?
Crew.
Okay.
So she went off on me one day when we were filming, and she decided that she was going to list all her issues with me. Issues on a set, inevitable.
Yeah.
Issues on a set where you're all figuring things out, even more inevitable. Issues where the director feels like he's in over his head and doesn't know... I didn't have answers to every single question because I didn't think about this last night. I didn't think about this yesterday. There was no time. There was a lot of tension, and she went in. This is the second last day of filming. Why would you be having this conversation now? I have a problem that you did this and this and this and this and this in front of people. Very disrespectful. I did not like it. And that entire day I already felt like... you know how you feel when your blood sugar is low? Yeah.
Yes.
And you start to feel a little bit lightheaded, and you feel like all your emotions are now all over the place. I've been feeling like that. So as she's talking to me, I'm eating my potatoes. Nilikuwa nakula viazi because I'm like, get that blood sugar up.
Yes.
But when she finished, she walked off. We were going back to film the rest of the scenes that we had for the day. And as I was saying, this needs to happen, I remember I froze like that. What I'm trying to say is, and the CD skipped.
It was
the
on
LP
a loop. Yeah.
just started looping. I
Right.
couldn't put a sentence together. I was feeling lightheaded, and we were shooting by a pool. So at one point, I felt like I was going to fall in, and the crew realized something is wrong here.
Right.
Something is wrong. So the medic was called. I was given this solution. I was told to sit in the shade, and I just sat there, almost catatonic.
Wow.
Yeah. The fatigue had hit. The bodies had said, we're done.
And this is after, was it triggered by this confrontation?
I think the confrontation really brought it out because,
Okay.
I don't like confrontations. Confrontations take energy.
Yeah.
And she was demanding answers of me.
Yeah.
It was not nice. She was like, now tell me. Okay, you've said this, now say this. And it's in front of people. So I'm being like stripped down in front of people.
Yeah.
And I was really trying to be civil and whatever. And
But it wasn't... Okay, but so did this episode continue into like full-blown depression, or did it...
That's a good question. So I was taken home early that day, and they continued filming what they could. ironically enough, the lady that I'd had a fight with lived the same route as me.
Yeah.
And I was just sat in the front, very quiet. Very quiet. We weren't saying a thing. And we started a conversation, and I'd been listening to a podcast, and we started talking about money or something. And it was a podcast about a book called The Spirit of Money, and we talked about it, and she was like, oh my God, that's really, really nice. Oh my God, you're so insightful. And I'm like, you manipulative.
Yeah.
Oh, now, because it's
Yeah.
hit the fan, and
Yeah.
you might feel like you're responsible. Now you're being all friendly
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
That's the point at which I knew, man. Pick your crew well. Yeah, they can destroy you. They can make or they can destroy you. So anyway, we came back and filmed the last day of filming, and this interesting piece of trivia: everything we filmed on those last 2 days ended up on the cutting room floor. We shot about an hour and 25 minutes, maybe an hour 35 minutes of Lusala.
Wow.
But we cut, I think 15 minutes was cut, 20 minutes was cut before the first cut, and the rough cut, and then we cut off even more because
And-
we had to find something
Yeah.
that was the story.
And you,
That is why the film is the length
that
it is.
short. And you did such a brilliant job, you guys. And then it won a whole bunch of awards as well.
We made the film in edit, and it finally was done. We
Yeah.
reached picture lock. We managed to do whatever other things, the grading, the sound design, the music design, the special effects that were needed. And then finally, we had a film.
Okay.
Kati found a festival very quickly. After it went into post, after someone saw it in its picture lock version, it found post money and found a festival like that.
Right.
Supermodo had a festival before it was even complete. Like it was already programmed in the festival while they were still sitting in post with it. Lusala sat for months
But
not finding a festival.
when did it come out though?
We finished shooting Lusala in let's just we finished shooting in June of 2018. We finished editing in November of 2018. We were finished with the final sound mix in April of 2019. And it had its local premiere, its Kenyan premiere in June of 2019.
Okay.
It was the opening film of the NBO Film Festival.
Right.
Katikati and Supermodo are also opening films of the NBO Film Festival, but they had their world premiere, their global premiere at TIFF, Toronto International Film Festival, and Berlinale, the Berlin Film Festival, respectively. Lusala was still flailing.
Oh,
It did
man.
not find. We thought it was going to end up in TIFF. One of the TIFF programmers came on set.
Yeah.
And then she was like, no. Now, the fact that it was 1 hour long was not doing it any favors.
Okay.
How festivals operate is that people still buy tickets. They still buy tickets and they'll sit their butt down and watch the film. That's still how it works. It's still very much a cinema experience. It's held in cinemas across a country, across a city. So TIFF will have Toronto, Berlin, many Berlin films, even NBO. It'll be spread around many screens, but people are still buying tickets. Programmers of festivals, the people selecting the films, want people to watch the films. And they want people to feel like they have value for money when they're watching the films.
Right.
A 1 hour film in a film festival that has 1.5 hour films, 2 hour films is not value for money.
Yeah.
And so that film will not be on the best footing when it begins. That's one of the reasons why it was not really finding the festival. The other reason was that it was just a difficult film to place.
Okay.
Whether it was genre-wise, it's a drama with certain elements of supernatural things going on. You could say supernatural if you look at it from the Kenyan perspective of, demons. But then it's also happening in someone's head. So there's thriller elements to it as well. And again, I have to say, thank goodness for the team that I had. Kevin Wangombe, who goes by The Raw, who was the editor of the film. Christian Kramer, who was the editing mentor. Guy Wilson, who, when we had hit a wall in the editing, looked at the film and said, move this scene here, move this scene here, move this scene here, move that there, move that there. If we do this timeline, the film will make sense. And we tried and it worked. And that's how we found the edit that ended up being the final edit.
Right.
Film is such a collaborative process. We do filmmakers as a whole a disservice when we put everything on the director. Yes, the director is the one that makes most of the most significant decisions, but it takes a village, and it really took a village to find Lusala where it was. I have to credit all the actors. They were freaking amazing. They were so, all of them. And regardless of all that, this film was flailing. For months, there was radio silence between myself and the producers as to what the fate of the film was. So between June of 2019 and about October, November of 2019, I had nothing. No one, and for me who's sitting at home and going on with my life, no one wants the film. It hasn't been programmed. Nothing. Until I think November or December of 2019, we heard that it had been accepted at the International Film Festival, Rotterdam, which is a really good festival. How they solved the problem of it's a 1-hour film was they just programmed a short film before it. And Lusala and this short film all traveled together during this film festival. This was in January of 2020 when Lusala had its global premiere.
January 2020. And it still went through COVID season and won all of these accolades.
I like that you talk about the One Awards. Lusala won just a couple of awards, a handful of them.
Yes.
Please remember it was preceded by Supermodo that by this point had the number of awards was probably in the 50s because it's kept on winning awards later on. I was at the premiere of Supermodo in Berlin.
Yeah.
There was a room full of close to 1,000 people, men, women, and children, eating this film up, eating it up. By the point the climactic events of the film are happening, people were crying. Tears.
Yeah.
When Kati Kati premiered at TIFF, Mbithi was on the way to the airport, really happy that this film has screened. I'm so happy.
Yeah.
This dude received a call midway to the airport saying, you need to come back. Your film just won an award. They turned the taxi around and he showed up with his luggage still in the car to accept this award, which was the Fipreschi Prize, which is a very prestigious prize in the discovery section, the section of the film it was. Of all, Fipreschi is the International Federation of Film Reviewers or Film Critics. And they picked Kati Kati as the most standout film they saw in that section. Lusala premiered at TIFF, at IFFR. Please remember, a room full of 1,000 people.
Yeah.
For Supermodo. Because I was the director of the film, I was very happy to be in Rotterdam. It was my first time in the Netherlands. I was excited. My film is premiering, man. It's going to be seen by people. So let me just make it clear that that'll never take that joy away.
Okay.
I'm still so proud of that film and what it managed to do. When you get to Rotterdam, you check in at your hotel. For some reason, I think this was universe kind of softening the blow to come. As I was at the lobby of the hotel, the dude takes my passport and looks through it and says, oh, we've upgraded your room. You're not in a single room. You're now in an executive suite.
Oh, wow.
For no reason. I was like, I don't know why, but they put me up in an executive suite, which was really 2.5 rooms from one. And I'm like, this is nice. You have your big, lavish bedroom, and then you have your meeting room, and you have a coffee station and a big bathroom. It was wonderful. Hey, boss. I was like, this is nice.
Yeah.
I went downstairs to meet my chaperone. The chaperone sort of guides you around, and they take you to the cinema so that you can test your screen. test the screen, make sure everything is fine. Is the sound okay? Is the picture okay? I remember walking with her and being like, I'm not going to ask her where she's taking me. I've seen some of the bigger screens.
Yeah.
I hope I'm being taken to one of those. Bro, tulipelekwa kwa kasinema kadogo, where I remember we walked in, I was like, this is a dimly lit cinema, man. It's like, and it had many screens. I walk in and the maximum capacity of that theater must have been probably 250 people.
Yeah.
Maximum.
Yeah.
Naikuja.
Oh.
So that was the premiere of Lusala.
Okay.
To a room full of people that were there to see the film, yes. They were there, they saw the short film, they saw the film, and I remember at the end of the film, there was a sigh. I can't tell, and I'm being honest with you, I can't tell if the sigh was a sigh of satisfaction or a sigh of, it's over. We were really getting into it, it's over. And I get that from a lot of people, that the film is so short, it seems to end so quickly just when you feel like, well, oh yeah, and then boom.
Yes, just
And
when it's finally picked up pace and then you want to know, okay, so what happens
What
with
happens
the
and
demon
then it's
that's
over.
living in his head? Like,
Yeah.
is he okay after that, you know?
We do find a way to resolve the film. He finds peace. He battles the demon underwater. He comes
Yeah.
up and he finds his peace.
Okay, you'd better make a Lusala 2 or 3, like a scene.
No, thank you. No, thank you. No, I'm good. Thanks. We're all good as far as that one goes. So when the film completed,
Yeah.
completed screening, Supermodo had applause all through the closing credits and after. Lusala had probably about 15 seconds of applause. And people got up and left. And Bithi came up and they do a brief Q&A and
Yeah.
half the room was present for that.
Yeah.
And when it was done, Bithi, who gave me the reassurance that watching the rough cut of Lusala will have me wanting to quit the movie because he felt the same way when they saw the rough cut of Katikati, assured me that this is how it is. This is how it is
Okay.
at IFFR.
Yeah.
People clap and they up and leave. Many years later, someone who was Dutch came when she had me telling that story, said, actually, I'm half Somali, I'm half Dutch, and the Somali side of me lives in Kenya.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I've been to Kenya many times, and I want you to know that's how the Dutch are. Nothing personal, that's just how they are. They're just impersonal. And
Yeah.
But I remember going back to my hotel, back to my executive suite, feeling this film has not turned out anything like the others have. And at that point, I really had to start falling in love with the film for myself.
Yes.
And that's the thing about failure. You can pull yourself out of failure by all visible aspects. You can have a successful film that has played at a festival. Lusala was successful at IFFR. There was an audience scoring, and the top scoring film was the biggest film of that year, which was Parasite.
Yes.
But it was the black and white version because Bong Joon-ho went back into post and was like, if we make this film black and white, I think it'll be even more powerful. And somehow it worked.
Yeah.
It was. Parasite was excellent. Parasite ended up winning Best Picture and Best International Film at the
Yes.
same Oscars.
Yeah.
Best Director for Bong Joon-ho won a bunch of awards. Its audience score and Lusala's audience score were only hundreds of points apart. We were both in the 4,000s. So that was like 4,700 and Lusala was like 4,400 and something in audience points.
There you go.
And the funny thing is, after I left Rotterdam, because of its good score, Lusala ended up playing at the biggest screening space. But I was at home. I was in Kenya.
Yes.
Like this. So the point I'm making is, by every definition of success, you would still consider yourself a failure.
So it's all about what is in your head. Ultimately, this is the key
all here.
message. Which is cute because I was about to ask you if you were to sum up the one lesson you have learned about your journey with, clinical depression and whatever career failure you think you're experiencing, how would you put it in one sentence? I think that would be it.
I will answer that question.
Yes.
I will say, though, we got into the pandemic after IFFR. Literally, I came back to Kenya
Yeah.
a month and a half. All of us were at home wondering what is
Yeah.
going on. And what would have been a robust, or at least I imagine might have been a robust film run for Lusala,
Yeah.
never happened.
Okay.
I never flew to another country because of Lusala. Even if we were expecting I was going to go to Brazil and
Yeah.
Spain and wherever, all of that down.
Yeah.
So I never even got to enjoy a festival run. I fell into depression again. I'm pretty much out of the woods now.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's the story of it. Whenever I tell someone about Lusala, I've never screened Lusala for myself in any of my screening spaces.
Oh, wow.
Because I'm still fostering my relationship
Yeah,
with that
yeah.
film.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest about that. I keep saying it's a film that I'm learning to fall in love with for myself. And it's taking time. Every director has that with their film. Mbithi had to find a relationship with Kati Kati because he was still watching the film he made.
Yeah.
Even if other people were watching the film he made. Do you understand what I mean by that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're watching the film he made, but you're watching the film you made.
Yes.
And you can see all the kinks, you can see all the things, all the chinks in the
Yeah.
armor, all of it.
Yeah.
I still have to get past that. And then not having been validated by a good festival run or lots of awards, still have to validate it for myself.
Yeah. Okay.
The way I do that for myself is I have to take the big picture look. And that is what I would tell to anyone that sees what failure is.
Yeah.
We are highly subjective creatures. We have very primitive brains. Our primitive brains still exist to have us running away from a beast. We still have fight or flight, which is such a primitive. We don't have the reasoning of, I'm in trouble. What do I do? Can I reason with this thing and kind of find out? No, it's fight or flight.
Yeah.
We still have our most executive functions led by
Yes.
tiny little bits of our brain
Yes.
that have not evolved that much since our
This is
ancestors.
true. Since the days that we needed instinct to survive.
That is who we are. That is still very much who we are.
Yeah.
Our dealing of what is successful or failure is still very this dimensional.
Yeah.
What I'd invite anyone who's been in the middle of failure, and what I'm opening myself up to do right now is always view where you are and be present to it.
Yeah.
Because it is part of a larger continuum that you will never be able to know as you are now.
True.
You will always be subjective to the point you're at because you're there.
True.
You're not anywhere else.
Yeah.
However, you can foster within yourself something of a time traveling mentality. And this is what I mean by that. I can still go to that Mugambi on set who's passing out and not knowing what's going to happen and be like, dude, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I can still be the person that future me will come and thank and say, thank you for hanging in there, dude. I would not have gotten here if you did not hang in there. And I can tell my younger self that. When you have been in the zone, and I'm sure you understand this, where you are, time seems to become a
Yes.
distant, not just, it doesn't disappear, it becomes a distant concept that you can see across time.
True.
I aspire to be not the person that looks at failure like this, but looks at it as someone who's in the zone, who can look at the vast spread of a life and be, that was good, even when they were in the valley.
Yes. Amen and hallelujah to that. I love that approach to failure. Like, you can, hindsight, I suppose, allows you to look at everything and connect the dots backwards.
Yes.
And you'll be like, yeah, that was a useful situation. That wasn't a failure. It was exactly what I needed to get to where I am now.
So I'm asking people to connect the dots forwards.
Yes. Yes.
You have to jump forwards and
Yeah.
look back to where you are now and
Yeah.
be like, okay, let's see.
Yeah.
We've been there. Can we be there? Are we there right now? The answer is yes.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So profound. So, I mean, on that note, I would like to say thank you to you, Mugambi.
You're
for
welcome. All of
blessing
that
us.
for this one thing. I really, the reason I said yes to this
Yeah.
was because I was, just like people don't talk about mental illness the way they should.
Yes.
They talk about failure always retrospectively.
Yes.
Oh, that was, but no. The failures, you have failures ahead of you.
Yes. Yes.
And they're coming.
Yes.
and you don't know where they're coming from or how they're going to look. I have failures ahead of me, you have failures ahead of you. But if we're able to look at them with the kind of eagerness of anticipation or anticipation of someone who sees the big picture, then we're going to be making progress. Not just as individuals, but even as a country.
This is
And as a Kayo.
Yes, this is so inspiring. Thank you. You've given me fresh perspective, even though I am the one who hosts the failure effect. But look at me learning new things constantly.
Yeah.
I just want to thank you so much for blessing us with your wisdom.
You're welcome.
Your time, your story,
Yeah.
your insights. I mean, now we're all going to go back and watch all of the roles that you've been in on Netflix and go like, oh, now I know what was happening
Yeah.
when that scene was being shot.
Yes, please do. Please do. Please
All
do.
right. So
Yeah.
on that note, you can use the social media handles to follow Mugambi on his channels. And we will see you next week for another one just like this one.